morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of PTCGRadio. So today, we need to have a look at what might end up being my very favourite deck. I don't say that lightly, ladies and gentlemen. I say that because this is a deck featuring that new Donphan that I'm very much in love with, and the old Spiritomb, which, as anyone that follows this channel will know, I am very much in love with. Yes, Japan's in a very slightly different format at the moment, and yes, there are a couple of cards that we've lost that Japan hasn't, but I really don't think it's going to make a huge difference at all. Let me explain as we go. Now, starting off, it's not actually really Donphan we're loving straight off the bat. It's the new Phanpy. You see, the new Phanpy is kind of redonkulously awesome. For 2 energy, you do 30 damage for each damage counter on that Phanpy, which is kind of ridiculous. Essentially, if you get 6 damage counters on, you're doing 180 damage for 2 energy. Yes. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that sounds pretty gosh darn good to me. It's a lot of damage pretty quickly. It sounds very much like Spiritomb, and that's because it is. Now, Spiritomb does 10 damage, plus 30 for each damage counter on it, but Spiritomb has 10 less HP naturally, so you're all good. Yeah, fine, Spiritomb does 10 plus, whereas Phanpy doesn't, but Phanpy's actually got a higher damage limit because of the extra HP. But what you've essentially got here is a pair of Pokemon that just want to be damaged. And when they get damaged, they come hitting pretty good damage. And then, of course, you're hitting 2 different weaknesses. And, okay, to be fair, since Dragapult stopped seeing a huge amount of play, Darkness Weakness hasn't been the most relevant. But I tell you what, fighting weakness with stuff like Eternatus right now, absolutely relevant. So that's kind of wonderful. So where does Donphan come into it? Well, Donphan comes into it for the first attack, not the second attack, right? Fighting double colorless 90 damage, no, nobody cares. It is all about the first attack, which for a single fighting energy does 120 damage, plus 20 damage to each of your benched Pokemon. So the theory here is extremely simple. You get a bunch of Phanpy and Spiritomb on the bench, and then you start spreading damage. And you keep spreading damage. And you spread a bit more damage. And what you're actually doing is doing a decent amount of damage. It's the same amount of damage as Excadrill did, and we like Excadrill. But you're also then damaging all of your bench Pokemon, so then your Spiritomb and your Phanpy are going to be coming up hitting like 180 damage or things in that range. And these are all just single prize Pokemon. And honestly, it's kind of lovely, ladies and gentlemen. It's kind of lovely. Now, in terms of other Pokemon, one we do see here is Jynx. Jynx is very, very important. Jynx lets you move 1 damage counter from one of your Pokemon to another of your Pokemon. And this is how you can get rolling nice and quickly. It means you can use Spiritomb's ability to put a damage counter on Spiritomb. That is, of course, one of the best things about Spiritomb. It can self-damage. But then you move the damage using Jynx over to your Phanpy, which is kind of ridiculous. Our draw of choice here is Jirachi. That's the one that lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, find a supporter card, put it into your hand, or any trainer card, doesn't have to be a supporter, any trainer card you like, and then you go to sleep, and it's kind of sad, but never mind. And then we got a single copy of Mew. Now, Mew from Unbroken Bonds is very important here. The Mew from Unbroken Bonds prevents all damage done to your bench Pokemon by your opponent's attacks, i.e., it will stop your opponent hitting your Pokemon on the bench, but it will not stop Donphan hitting your bench Pokemon, which is, of course, very, very important because you want Donphan to be hitting the bench. But then you're aiming to have lots of Pokemon with, like, 10 damage remaining. Clearly, you don't want your opponent to come in and start hitting the bench and taking out multiple Pokemon at once. So, this makes it pretty gosh darned important. Mew is sneaky important in this deck. And that's the Pokemon line. It's as simple as that. You've got your Phanpy and your Spiritomb and your Donphan to attack. You've then got your Jirachi as a draw engine. And then you've got Jynx to move damage and Mew to protect your bench. you'll notice that none of those Pokemon are rotating out. Well, look at that. As we move into energy, we obviously see Darkness energy, because that's what we're using to pay Spiritomb's attack cost. And we see Fighting energy, which is what we use to pay Phanpy and Donphan's attack cost. Now, this particular list does play unit energy, because there is one unit energy which is actually Fighting and Darkness. It has rotated out for us, but you can swap it for Aurora energy. I know you have to discard a card from your hand when you play it, and that's slightly annoying, but a lot of the time you're going to be fine doing so. Yes, we would rather have unit energy, obviously, but I really don't think this is a particularly big loss, so I wouldn't worry your pretty little heads about it. Now, moving over into our trainer line here, our main supporter is Professor's Research. Discard your hand, draw 7 cards. Professor's Research is a very important card. It's a kind of card which an awful lot of decks play, and it's a kind of card that an awful lot of decks should play. It's fast, it's aggressive, it gets you set up, it gets you what you need. We do see some Marnie in there as well. Marnie's the other supporter that everybody plays. Both players shuffle their hands and put them on the bottom of the deck. You get 5 cards, your opponent gets 4. It's nice in terms of being able to just, well, get rolling and get yourself some cards, but it's also pretty good in terms of stopping your opponent and slowing them down and giving them a low hand size and things of that nature. And then obviously we got a couple copies of Boss's Orders for a little bit of gusting to drag your opponent's Pokemon into the active and, you know, get a bit of KOs rolling. In terms of Pokemon search, we've got Quick Ball to search your basics because we've got a largely basic deck. And then we've got a Great Ball there, which will get any Pokemon you like. Obviously, we do need to get Donphan, but we also have 3 copies of Evolution Incense, which is there very much to go and get Donphan. So we got a fair bit of Pokemon search. And we've also got a fair bit of switching. You see, a skateboard has rotated out. That would let you retreat Jirachi for free even when you're asleep. We don't have it anymore. But we're still playing 4 copies of Scoop Up Net, which will pick up a Pokemon, and 3 copies of Switch, which could easily be up to 4. And we've got a bunch of switching here to get your Jirachi in and out. Now, one of the other cards we are losing here is Hustle Belt. Hustle Belt lets you do an extra 60 damage if you've got damage on and 30 or less HP remaining. Clearly, it's good for Pokemon like Spiritomb. But honestly, Hustle Belt could be replaced by Giant Cape. Or Cape of Toughness, I think it actually got translated as. And Cape of Toughness gives basic Pokemon an extra 50 HP. Which, honestly, a lot of the time is going to be a little bit better. And because you're doing a whole bunch of switching, this deck doesn't actually play it. But don't forget, we got Spikemuth, the stadium that puts 2 damage counters on a Pokemon when they go from the active to the bench. Which would both damage your opponent's Pokemon and your own, which obviously you're looking to do. So, yes, we have lost a skateboard and we have lost Hustle Belt here, and that's a little bit sad. But I honestly don't see why we couldn't just go Giant Cape and Spikemuth and stick with the switching, and that's what I've been doing in decks, and it's been working rather nicely. I should mention I missed that there is 1 copy of Pokemon Communication here, which gives you just that little bit of extra Pokemon draw. So in total, there's 4 Quick Ball, 3 Evolution Incense, 1 Pokemon Communication, and 1 Great Ball. We do play a couple of Ordinary Rod here to recover our Pokemon and our energy, and bearing in mind we are playing a mixture of energy, so that could end up being pretty gosh darned important. And we are playing 1 copy of Palpad to recover any supporter cards we might need in the future, which again is pretty key. The deck does play 1 copy of Martial Arts Dojo. That lets you do an extra 10 damage if you got basic fighting energy attached, or 40 if you're behind on prizes. You could go aggro with that, or you could go Spikemuth, or you could play a mixture of both, to be honest with you. I kind of like it. And then there is, I believe, the final card, 1 last copy of Great Catcher. And Great Catcher's a weird one. You discard 2 cards from your hand and then gust a GX active. It doesn't work on stuff like Crobat, but it does work on stuff like Dedenne and Zacian decks at the moment. The vast majority of them seem to be playing a single copy of Morile, and they can be gusted up and KO'd fairly easily, so it's kind of worth it. Yes, this deck has lost a couple of cards to the rotation, but unit energy is easily switched for Aurora energy, and things like a skateboard and hustle belt can just be swapped for a bit more switching and Spike Muff, and I'm not convinced that wouldn't give you a better deck anyway. This is definitely one of my very, very top picks for Vivid Voltage on. I've told you I'm just going to be playing a bunch of Donphan and Phanpy decks, and this is absolutely right at the top of my list of things I want to be testing. I genuinely believe this could be awesome. And now we've got a lovely list which gives us a lovely starting point. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to know what you think about all of this, and whether you think this deck is good and what changes you would make. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.